Hi everyone and welcome to StudioJake. I of course am your host Jacob Airy. Kind of a low-key video today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, ring the little bell because YouTube, those pranksters, they always unsubscribe. However, if you're watching on Facebook on Rumble, also give me a like or a rumble and tell me what you think about this video. I'm very excited. Wherever you're watching, I'm happy you're here. So today I want to do something a little low-key because next week I'm going to be doing a breakdown of the pilot of Walker Texas Ranger, the CW remake of Walker Texas Ranger. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, but I want to do something lighter to get started. So I'm going to show you 5 books with one honorable mention that are on my reading list for 2021. You know me, I'm a big reader, fiction, nonfiction. Sorry if you hear a little pitter patter, that's my dog moving around. He's moving around for some reason. So we're going to get started. So up first is an English translation of the Japanese memoir The Wind is Howling. It's written by Ayako Mura, and she is one of the biggest figures in Christianity as it relates to Japan. She was a convert, went through a really hard time, and she became a very prolific writer and some say theologian in Japan. And so this is her biography, or excuse me, her autobiography about how she became a Christian, the road she traveled to get there, and I'm very excited to read it. I have to admit I'm a little ignorant when it comes to Christianity in Japan. I know it often gets slammed, especially with anti-Christian movies like Silence and whatnot. But we're going to take a dive into this and sort of get an actual Japanese perspective as opposed to Martin Scorsese's point of view of a Japanese novel. So I'm really, really excited to read this and see what it has to say. All right, for those of you who've been following me for a long time, you know I love Jonathan Kellerman novels. So I am up to Rage. This is, as you know, I've been going back, reading them chronologically. I read, I think it was this one. I read this one first in the series of books, and I loved it so much. I went all the way back to When the Bough Breaks, which was the very first novel in the series. And so I'm back to Rage, and I'm very excited to read it with a fresh perspective, read it with the previous books in mind. I'm looking forward to it. His mysteries are always interesting, always entertaining. They always keep you on the edge of the seat, and I loved how, with the exception of one, Los Angeles has pretty much been the backdrop to all of the mysteries, so I'm excited to see what happens with this one. All right, everyone knows I'm a Batman fan, right? So I am going to read a manga. This is Batman Death Mask. I previously read and reviewed Batman and the Justice League, a manga that came out 2020 and 2019, and I'm excited to read this one. This is an older one. Death Mask actually became a more prominent villain in the comic books later, and another villain called Lord Deathman. So I'm excited to read this. Recently, I would like to say that international comic book writers have been doing a better job at writing Batman than American writers, especially Tom King. Jeez. So I'm curious. Like I said, this one's older. Let's see, what year did this come out? I actually don't know. Let's see. Okay, so this came out in 2008. So I know it's not a fair comparison to 2020 and going into 2021, but I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to see what it's all about. All right, so this is a brand new author I've never read before. This was recommended to me on a Facebook group I'm a part of. It's Matthew Newsom's The Man Wrapped in Darkness. It's a fantasy novel, it's a fantasy series. I'm huge into fantasy, favorite being, of course, The Lord of the Rings. But this one, I believe it's more like a paranormal fantasy, so it takes place in modern times, but it has kind of a dark supernatural tone to it. The main character is a guy named Alec Williams. I'm very excited to read this. Like I said, I'm not familiar with this guy's work. This is my first time reading it. This is one of his newer works. I think he's done sequels to this one, but you know me, I have to start at the beginning of all the series. I can't jump in the middle. Part of me being neurotic sometimes, but I'm very excited to dive into it, very excited to take a look at it. So this is actually a book that was recommended on a different YouTube channel that I watch. Yes, YouTubers watch other YouTubers. And this is called The Collaboration, Hollywood's Pact with Hitler. Now we all know that during the Cold War era, Hollywood collaborated with commies constantly, right? They just did a movie about one, Trumbo with Bryan Cranston. Of course, in that one, they tried to make it where Oh, it's kind of cool that he was hanging out with commies and not really that big a deal, but we all know that they were trying to infiltrate our culture, our minds. When we see that today, right, it continues on. But I never thought of Hollywood collaborating with the Nazis. And now, please note, I'm not saying all of Hollywood and every filmmaker. Obviously, it was a different time. As far as here in today, we have kind of a today we kind of have a more unifying force about socialism and communism coming from Hollywood. There were times when Hollywood was pretty much divided, and this is one of those times. So I'm not saying all of Hollywood, but I'm curious to know what this author says about it. This is um, Ben Urwand. I'm not again. He's another one I'm not really familiar with, but I'm excited to dive into this. I'm always curious to see because everyone kind of thinks of Hollywood having this golden age around this time during before World War II, kind of gets a pause in World War II, and then going into World War II up until Vietnam. But really, I never really thought Hollywood had a golden age. I always just thought it was people were bored, so they went to see more movies and whatnot. But I'm curious to read this. I'm really curious to see what it says, what connections they're going to make, and whatnot. I'm a big fan of history. I love reading history books, so I'm excited to read this one as well. The reason I made this part of an honorable mention is because it's not out yet. But my good friend C.S. Johnson, she has a new dystopian fantasy series coming out, and the first book launches. It's called Amelia's Revisited. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. CS, if I'm pronouncing that wrong, please let me know. I apologize. But I'm very excited about this novel. She's getting an audiobook put together as well, so you can also listen to it as opposed to just reading it. I personally love to read. I'm not big into listening to audiobooks. But anyway, I'm very excited about this book. I actually am planning on pre-ordering it, so maybe I can get it a little early and do an and reading article on my website. Okay, and that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to find me everywhere. Twitter and Instagram is at Real Jacob Airy. My MeWe is Jacob Airy. Facebook, of course, is author Jacob Airy. And head over to my website, StudioJakeMedia.com, where I've got more news, commentary, pop culture perspectives, and all kinds of stuff regarding movies, film, books, anime, television, and so much more. Head over there and follow me. And once again, like this video, leave me a comment. What book have you read? You can tell me a little about it, just no spoilers. Let me know what you think about these picks, if there's any that you were planning to read this year as well. And I'll see you next time, right here on Studio Jake.